Fist flying, no bounds. Podcast kings, we pound for pound. UFC thrills, stills nights get loud. Big EQP, that's how we get down.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the GRP. Back at it on a Thursday, ready to go with a lot of stuff to talk about because combat sports world has been busy, and I know I've said that the past couple weeks, but it just keeps going, and it's good for me because it gives me something to talk about. But man, it's like, how long are we gonna ride on this road of just continuous breaking news and constant announcements? But hey, it's better than being bored. And we got UFC 313 coming in hot this weekend on Saturday, and I'm excited for that one. Ankalaev versus Pereira. I mean, you can't. How can you not be excited for that one? Everyone's wondering if Ankalaev is gonna bring the wrestling and the grappling, and is Poatan gonna be ready for that shit? Like, what's gonna happen? I don't know, but I'm excited for it, and I'm ready for it, and it's coming this weekend. And I got a watch party going on Saturday. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but yeah, if you're not, oh, okay, I'm being told I'm very low. Let me bring that up. All right, last time I was super high, so hopefully that's better. Is that better? Hopefully that's better. If it's not one thing, it's another. All right. Well, we caught it. So I appreciate that, guys. Mom and Infinity Magics, thank you guys for letting me know about that. I didn't even pay attention. I made sure that the meter was moving, but I didn't see that it was low. So that's good. It's back to normal now. So appreciate it. But yeah, so we got UFC 313 coming up, and watch party happening for that on Saturday. We got some in-studio guests, so that should be fun. It's been a minute since I've done one. We did it, January? Did not do it last week or last month because it wasn't a great card. And I was just like break time. So, but now all these crazy problems that I've been having and stuff like that, as you can see, there's still a little bit of an issue with the volume jumping around. I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit, but I'll be setting up for the watch party this weekend. So I'll just make sure that I have everything covered with that one, and I'll test a bunch of times. It seems like when I jump on, it's either super high or really low, because when it's really high, I drop the volume and stuff like that. So I just need to pay attention more. I'll make a little note of that and keep better track. But otherwise, big announcements happening, like I said, in combat sports in general. Big boxing news. Dana White's involved in everything. The Saudis are throwing money left and right and putting together as much as they can. So, and that's a lot because they have endless amounts of money. So we're going to get into that pretty much right off the bat here. But other than that, I'm just waiting for the weekend. Had to work late today, and that was scary. But luckily, I had a lot of my prep, all of my prep pretty much done. So yeah, I was actually troubleshooting with Infinity last night too, doing some of that. So at least I turned everything on last night. I've been checking, double checking, and triple checking that all of these settings have been working and staying working. Obviously, the sound is a tricky thing, and I'm not sure what's going on with that. But at least when I turn it up, it's good. So that's all I care about. Easy fix, on the fly, and it doesn't hold me back from continuing to have problems that I can't stream with. So other than that, I've been busy with social media. I've been trying to keep up. It's tough when things are this crazy with this much breaking news and constant announcements. It's tough because I work a regular job that keeps me pretty damn busy. And then I want some downtime, some time to myself where I don't have to worry about this, that, or the other thing. And every time I sit down and chill, something else new is happening. And I'm like, I have to post something about that. So I've been trying to make like templates and stuff like that to be ready and be able to just jump on it, input some pictures and some wording, and then send it out. So If you haven't already, go follow me everywhere on social media. Going Rounds Podcast everywhere except for X. It's Going Rounds Pod. It's all going on right down there. And yeah, go follow me everywhere. I've been trying to keep up, like I said, putting out more content as much as I can. And TikToks, I'm making TikToks left and right because it's fun, for one, and for two, it's a good way to get stuff out there. TikTok's big still. So, and then I've been throwing more stuff up on Instagram and X. So yeah, go check it out and, give me some likes and view my videos and all that good stuff. And if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe here and hit that notification bell so you know when I'm going live or putting up a new video. I did throw a new short out there today. I've been trying, I forgot about YouTube Shorts, but that's because a lot of the content I've been making, YouTube doesn't like some of it. So, but TikTok's been giving me some problems too. It's tough, man. It's tough to keep up with all of the platforms and what they will and won't take, what they're going to flag and what they're going to say, you got to change this or change that, or they can't show this or show that. It's crazy. And then it's just me trying to keep up with all of it and make all the content, put it all out there. So I do my best, and but it's fun, and I, it keeps my mind going, keeps me creative, and that's what, I enjoy doing it all, even if it gets a bit overwhelming sometimes. So be on the lookout for all that stuff. I felt like my light was very bright. Nope, that needs to be there. Okay. Felt like my light was really bright, but other than that, I need to make sure that I talk about my sponsor, Noctane smelling salts. I'm about to hit this because I really need it. But to be alert and be awake, it's always a good thing. And it's time to get a good dose of this right now. This is the most potent one. So you're going to see a harsh reaction, but it only lasts for a couple seconds. And it definitely wakes me up. Oh, yep, that was a good one. Woo! You got to be careful because it'll sneak up on you. You think you're putting your nose in there real gingerly, and next thing you know, bam. But it's a good one. So Noctane smelling salts, go take a look at their website. Hit that QR code. I got a link in the description as well. Go get yourself a bottle. You don't have to start with the most potent. You could start with the white cap. It's the least potent, or the black one. It's about mid-range. Then you got the red cap, which is what I like and what I'm used to. And that'll get you going. Makes my eyes watery, but it's a good thing. So thanks to Noctane for the sponsorship. Appreciate it. And if you notice, my hat is kind of busy. I didn't notice how much it looked like, but I do like the side. The side's pretty dope. I like the whole thing really, but I hadn't really gotten any new hats recently, so I bought a couple new ones, and this is one of them. I'll have the other new one on for the watch party on Saturday. But Braves are my team. Baseball's starting up, and I thought this one was cool. I like to get the different hats. I don't like to get just the plain old normal ones. I did that back in the day, and now I change it up to go with some shirts and stuff like that. Keep it nice and new, so, and interesting. Oh, thanks, Tren. Tren's in the chat. Tenant Tren, go follow her everywhere. Gamer streamer. I always like to shout her out because she's working hard, working, school, trying to stream, keeping up with social media as well. It's a tough job, so go check her out everywhere. Tenant Tren. Thanks, Tren. I appreciate that. And of course, we got Infinity and Magic's in the chat too. They both have YouTube channels. You can go look for their stuff and check them out. Subscribe, give them some views and stuff. Check out their stuff going on too. But as for everything else, that's about it. So let's get into this combat sports news because there's a lot to talk about, and I'm ready to go. So here we go. Combat sports news starting now. And we start with that breaking news from the other day, coming from Dana White and Turki Al-Sheikh. Turkey's the guy who runs Riyadh Season, the Saudis doing the boxing stuff, and they've overflowed into WWE, the UFC, and now teaming up with TKO, which is the parent company to WWE and the UFC. And they're gonna be starting a boxing promotion, so like a new boxing league headed up by UFC president Dana White and WWE president Nick Khan. So those are two big heavy hitters in sports entertainment. And I say sports entertainment because obviously the sports side, you know, wrestling is athletic and you know, they have to be athletic to be good in wrestling because of all the crazy acrobatics and stuff that they do in there. Regardless of what you think of wrestling, about it being fake and it's scripted and all that stuff, but they still have to be pretty high level athletes to get through the rigorous training and the stuff they put their bodies through. It all seems kind of dumb for something that, you know, is fake and scripted and all that stuff, but regardless, they get paid good money. Unfortunately, some CTE happens and that makes things a little rough for them. But you got to respect the athleticism it takes to do what they do. But I'm not sure who that is, Infinity. I'm gonna have to go check that out. But I don't really follow, if that's wrestling, I don't really follow wrestling much. But I do know, I do hear a lot about it on some of the podcasts I listen to that incorporate some stuff with wrestling. So never really heard of that name, but I'm not sure. I'll have to go check it out. But yeah, so TKO, the parent company to the WWE and the UFC, are teaming up with Turkey Al-Sheikh, making Dana White the face of the promotion for a new boxing league. So I don't know if it's going to be called TKO Boxing. I'm not sure exactly all of the details. You know, they gave us a little bit of what was happening with this in a tweet by Ring Magazine, who's now owned by Turkey Al-Sheikh as well. He's all over the place. He's got endless amounts of money. That's what happens in Saudi. If you go over to Saudi Arabia and Dubai and all those places, man, the money just flows over there. So this guy's interested in combat sports, and I guess we got to applaud him for it because he's doing big things. We've seen it happen in boxing. We've seen him get involved with MMA, with the UFC. You know, the Sphere last year was a Riyadh season sponsored event. We've had big Saudi cards. So they're doing the damn thing all over the place. But it says, announced, Turkey Al-Sheikh and TKO have signed a multi-year partnership to establish a new boxing promotion with executive leadership anchored by UFC President Dana White and WWE President Nick Khan. The new promotion will feature a highly structured system to develop new talent from around the world, including athlete combines and academies. So they seem to have put Kellum Walsh as the face of all of the highlights that they were showing during the announcement. And we all know that Dana White talks about that dude endlessly, and about how talented he is, and they want to, you know, born and bred in TKO boxing type stuff. And I think that they want to bring up some of these younger guys who are just getting into boxing and really bring them up to be superstars. And Kellum Walsh is one of those guys for sure, if you couldn't tell by all of the promotion they were giving him in all of this lead up. So the second thing is access for all boxers to the UFC Performance Institute, the world's leading combat sports performance training center, or training, research, rehabilitation, and nutrition center, which I already hear about all this crazy stuff that happens at the PI between all the fighters, and how some fighters can't get in here and can't get in there, and they have to do some crazy scheduling. They have to work around things. It's like, how are you going to cater to the 600 plus UFC fighters on the roster, and then however many boxers as well? I mean, are they going to expand the PI? Are they going to do a secondary version of it? What are they going to do? Because I mean, it's not a secret that there's issues with the PI and all that stuff. It sounds like a well-oiled machine, except for the fact that you get a little too big for your britches, right? That sounds like a stupid saying, but it's the only thing I could think of at the moment. But you have so many people coming into this one facility. You have to be able to handle that volume on top of the, you know, the scheduling, the food, the trainers, the staff in general that has to be employed there is insane. So I don't know. I've never been there. I don't have inside information or insight into the way that place runs, but I've heard this over and over and over again from many fighters and people involved that have been at the PI. So that one's a little bit interesting, and I wonder how they're gonna juggle all that. But I'm sure they have a plan. The UFC makes things happen, so And with the Saudi money behind it all, I guess we just got to wait and see. The last thing they put in here was TKO's production, media, and promotional expertise to deliver both in-arena experiences and top-tier state-of-the-art broadcasts to fans around the world, which means no more, it's exactly what Dana said, no more of these 4-hour cards or 4-hour cards, 4-card fights that last hours and hours and hours. He said something like, oh, these guys will go fight and then do a podcast in between fights and all this other stuff. I don't know what he's talking about really, but we've seen a lot of these other boxing cards that have full on like concerts happening in between fights. And then there's just these old heads talking over and over and over again for fucking like an hour before the next fight happens. And it's like, what are we doing? What are we watching? How long is this gonna last? And then you get some shitty fight that comes up next and you're waiting for the main event. That's why people don't watch the entire card like they do for the UFC. UFC knows how to do it. They put fight after fight after fight, back to back to back. They get things going. They push through, and it may be a long time from start to finish, like early, very first prelim fight to the main event. It might be 6 or 7 hours, but it's packed with fighting. There's not all this filler shit. There's not all this time in between where they're doing crazy shit. It's like none of that is what's happening. You get the fights and you get the main course all the time, and that's what you're there to do. So the UFC, it sounds like Dana White's gonna run it like the UFC. He kept saying, you know, the model is what the UFC does. You're gonna get the best fights from the best fighters matching up, and there's not gonna be any of this, oh, you know, he's undefeated and we got to protect his undefeated record and pad it more and give him, you know, cans to get through. No, you're gonna get the biggest fights with the biggest fighters happening, not 5 years after it should have happened. You're going to get it right then and there, as long as they can sign these fighters, which it sounds like they're going to be able to, because there's a lot of people interested in this already. So it says further details about the new boxing promotion, including fighter signings, fight schedules, venues, and host locations, will be revealed in the coming months. So we're going to get a lot more news coming out about this, and we're going to hear about a lot more coming up in the near future. So that should be interesting, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen there. And I also heard that they're looking at having you know, fights around times to kind of have like full weekends of fighting. So maybe Friday night boxing fights, Saturday night UFC fights, Sunday night WWE matches. Like, who knows? They're gonna, you know, I'm sure the UFC is gonna stay on Saturday, but yeah, they're gonna have like weekends full of TKO events, and they're gonna make massive money. Not to mention the broadcasting deals. I'm sure we're gonna have Netflix involved, maybe Amazon involved, ESPN I'm sure is gonna be involved. They're gonna have shit everywhere. So we're gonna be inundated with combat sports, and if you're a fan, that's what you want. So, and for me, that just means more content. It means I'm gonna have to cover a lot more boxing because if they make it that interesting, it might get me into boxing a little more than I am now. I'm not really into boxing that much right now. The bigger fights and the bigger fighters I will follow, but other than that, I don't get involved too much in boxing. So maybe that needs to change, and it probably will with all this going on. So here's just a little pic of them at the table making the deal with all the big wigs and you know, just the aesthetics of things, shaking hands, Turkey and Dana. I mean, big things are coming, and this is just the beginning. Not to mention the GFL, you know, obviously that's not incorporated with any of this, but the GFL is going to be starting up in like April, and when that happens, it sounds like they're going to be doing kind of NFL type scheduling, where they're going to have stuff like maybe Thursday nights and Sunday nights, or stuff Sunday, Monday nights, something like that. That's going to be crazy too. So you're going to have fighting happening almost all week long, from, you know, from Sunday. I mean, it might be from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And then just Tuesday, Wednesday will be the only days without actual fights happening. Who knows? But it's going to get crazy. So be on the lookout for that. If you're a big combat sports fan, you're gonna have a lot to watch coming up here in the middle of the year. And yeah, I'm just here waiting to see what happens and to talk about all of it. So let's move into maybe something not so much of a, maybe not so much of a, I don't know how to explain it. Maybe not so professional, maybe not so organized, but Misfits Boxing has been around for a while and been putting up big fights here and there. KSI is the main dude at Misfits Boxing. It's his organization, and he's gonna go in there and fight Dillon Danis. Now, talking about GFL, Dillon Danis is also signed to the GFL, and they just announced the fact that he's gonna be fighting Tony Ferguson in the GFL. When that's gonna happen, I don't know yet, but we know that Dillon Danis and KSI are fighting coming up here at the end of the month, I believe. I think it's March 29th. I'm gonna have to look that up because I don't recall for sure. But I do believe it is this month. So yeah, the 29th, I was right, in Manchester. So they were scheduled to fight before, but I think Danis pulled out. It was canceled after, oh, I'm sorry, that was KSI. Oh, KSI's initial fight was canceled after Wayne Bridge withdrew on January 20th. So they decided to make this Dillon Danis fight because they had beef before. So they were supposed to fight, or talking about fighting, and they like got into some crazy scuffle, and Danis threw like some coffee at KSI and pushed him by his face or something like that. Well, they had a bit of a press conference and of course things got crazy. That's how things happen with KSI. Well, not really so much KSI unless somebody pushes him to get there, but Dillon Danis is a fucking troll, and he always gets the drama going. It's entertaining for the most part, but it gets annoying after a while. But this is what happened at that face-off between them. As you can see, KSI talking to him, Danis talking shit. Crack! KSI slaps the shit out of him. Now, apparently, I don't know about this because it's a little, yeah, he did have something in his hand. Apparently, he had a pancake in his hand. Now, if you remember, the Eubanks and Chris Eubanks, Connor Benn face off that ended with some eggs getting smashed on Connor Benn's face that we talked about last week. Well, this week, that had to do with Connor Benn dropping dirties and blaming it on eggs, right? Saying they were tainted or whatever. Well, apparently on this day that they had this, it was International like Pancake Day or something like that. So KSI thought it'd be funny to pull a pancake out of his pocket and slap the shit out of Dillon Danis. It was funny. I laughed my ass off because Dillon Danis is one of those guys that you want to slap the shit out of. And it happened. So as you can see here, Danis is somewhat has a smile on his face, but that's because he's an idiot. So yeah, I wouldn't expect anything different from him. If he said pancake slap, yeah, I didn't believe it at first, but it was all over the place. And how they talked about he actually had a pancake in his hand, insane, ridiculous. But that's the kind of circus you get from stuff like Misfits Boxing. It's the influencer boxing type shit. So yeah, we'll be on the lookout for that one at the end of the month. I'll be waiting I'm not paying for that shit, but I'll find it somewhere, or I'll just watch the highlights. But it'll be hilarious to see Dillon Danis, a professional fighter. He's had a few MMA fights, longtime jiu-jitsu guy, but and he's fought once in boxing against Logan Paul and got his ass whooped. So it'll be funny to see him get his ass whooped by Logan Paul's partner in Prime, and then he loses to him too. That shit would be funny. So I guess we'll have to see what happens March 29th when these two actually get in the ring and fight each other. I'm not sure, but it should be funny. So let's get to a little more of a professional match, except unprofessional outcome, kinda. But Gervonta Tank Davis versus I forget Roach's name. I don't know why the hell I keep forgetting his name. I'm not gonna worry about it. His last name is Roach. That's hilarious. Tank versus Roach. I didn't even realize it said that on this poster, but they boxed this past weekend, and I actually, you know, I didn't even really cover it last week. I mentioned it, but I didn't cover it because it was all I kept seeing was Lamont Roach is his name, but I kept seeing how everyone was just assuming Tank was gonna murder this fool because he was a plus 1600 favorite, or I'm sorry, minus 1600 favorite to Roach being plus 900 or something like that. So it was nuts. The gap. Everyone's thinking Tank, this is just like a feeder fish for Tank and all this other shit, right? Yeah, Infinity was right. This was the outcome was a draw. And it should have been Tank losing, and that's because of what happened at the end. So, you know, Tank did his thing. He landed punches. He you know, he was in the fight. It wasn't like one-sided whatsoever, but it was a damn tougher fight than everyone mentioned, than everyone expected. And Roach definitely gave him a hell of a fight. Came in and started roughing up Tank a little bit, but you know, Tank's one of those guys that always acts like nothing is bugging him. He didn't really get rocked or anything for the most part, but he did wind up taking a knee at one point, which maybe he did get rocked and that was his way of getting past it. But he gets hit, he kind of turns around, and then he's getting low, like he in that bottom picture right there, and next thing you know, he actually puts his knee down and just puts his knee down real quick, and then looks around. The ref actually starts counting, and then Tank just gets up and walks straight to his corner. And it's like, what the fuck's going on? The ref stops counting and goes and talks to him, and Tank's in the corner with a towel. He's like telling somebody to get him a towel. It's like he calls timeout for himself. and they let him get away with it. He goes over to his corner. He gets it. You're not supposed to go to your corner for one whenever the action stops unless the ref tells you to. It's usually you go to a neutral corner, but and on top of that, you're not supposed to get a towel in the middle of a round when you're supposed to be fighting. And he's wiping his face off and stuff. So his excuse for all of this was that he got some kind of grease or oil in his eye and it was burning, and that's why he took the knee, and that's why he went to his corner and wiped his face off, because he said whenever he got his hair styled that the product they used got in his eye. Now that could be legit, you know. Amanda Serrano had to Noctane in it. that would have made him come out a little better than he did, but he actually, Amanda Serrano actually had to cancel her fight because her eyes got burned from the product that was in her hair when she got her hair styled, and she was out for a run, and the sweat got in her eyes, and whatever product was in her hair burned the shit out of her eyes, and so she was having trouble seeing. It was in both of her eyes. So she put a tweet out there saying, I can relate, but you know, this is in the middle of a fight, so it's either you gotta just quit or you gotta make it through the round, and in between rounds figure out what to do, right? That's when you get your eyes wiped out. That's when you get things figured out. And instead, he just basically just takes his own sweet time to do what he wants, and everybody let it happen. If you're Roach, why aren't you running over and trying to smack this fool? And if you're the ref, why the fuck are you letting him get away with all this? Because he started the count. Why didn't the count continue? And on top of that, why would you let him go to his corner? It doesn't, none of this makes any sense. So, and on top of all of this, you know, everyone's talking about how that should have been a DQ. Overall, it should have just been a disqualification for him for doing any of that. Or on top of that, he should have gotten a point taken away. Because if that was, or, you know, have Roach score a knockdown. It wasn't scored a knockdown when he took a knee, and that's what everyone, all the controversy is about, is the fact that it wasn't scored a knockdown when he took a knee, even though the ref started the count. So all this shit is confusing, especially if you didn't watch it and you're just seeing all the highlights. You're like, what the fuck happened here? That's kind of where I was, and I had to just listen to things and watch highlights and read some of the articles to find out what the fuck was really going on. But I heard Tank talk about it. And it just sounds to me like maybe he got rocked and he was a little worried about it. He did say, hey, my eye was burning and I didn't want to get caught, so I went and wiped my eye off. It's like, that's cool, but you're not supposed to do that. So I mean, I understand it, but you're not supposed to do that. And he didn't get a point taken. The supposed knockdown wasn't considered a knockdown, and they wind up in a majority draw. So it's crazy. If they would have given Roach the knockdown, it would have been a 10-8 round. He would have won by 1 point. So that's what happened in this fight. It's a little bit crazy. And then you got Devin Haney posting things about showing Tank on his knee, showing Ryan Garcia on a knee, saying all these bitches taking knees. A real champ doesn't take a knee. A real champ doesn't quit. Saying some shit like that. I'm like, wow. He's out there just throwing shade. So pretty funny shit. Pretty crazy. I just can't believe that that's the way that happened. So that's the way it went down, and who knows what'll happen next with Tank, but he got away with all that, and there's a lot of people pissed about it. So that was that. Don't really know much about what happened on the rest of that card. Didn't hear much about any of it. That was all of the happenings and talkings about that entire night of fights. So we'll move away from that, and we'll talk real quick about the Watch Party podcast happening Saturday night during the main event, or I'm sorry, the main card. I always do that. It's the main card of UFC 313. When the main card goes live, we go live. It'll be 8 p.m. Arizona time. If you go to Google and you go to UFC events, click on UFC 313, and you see that on the very top left corner under main card, it says Saturday, May 8th or March 8th at 8 p.m. So the main card starts at 8 p.m. That's when we'll be going live, ready to watch the entire main card, live reactions, fight talk, and of course a bunch of shenanigans, because I got these two fools in the studio with me, my boys Clark, Mr. Golf and Glory, and my buddy Josh, who I've been friends with since we were like in 6th grade. And these are guys that I've watched fights with for as long as I've known them, for the most part. And they like to come in and have a good time while we have some drinks and some fun, hit the smelling salts, and talk a lot of shit. So it should be a good time. I don't show the fights, so I apologize, but I can't show the fights, otherwise my channel will get taken down. But we do watch them live, so instead of listening to the boring ass commentary or anything like that, you can come listen to us act like fools, talk some shit, and react live. That's always fun, watching people react to big knockouts and what happens in the fights. And we'll be talking about all of it as it goes down live. UFC 313 this Saturday, 8 p.m. Arizona time, we'll be going live. So whatever time the main card is on for you, tune into this channel and watch the Watch Party podcast with us on Saturday. So be there, should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Let's get into the recap of UFC Vegas 103 that happened this past weekend. We had the number 6 ranked flyweight Manel Kape versus last minute stand-in Asu Elmabayev, number 8 ranked flyweight, taking the place of Brandon Royval. Is it Brandon or Brandon? I always get confused. I think it's Brandon Royval. I don't know, who cares? He didn't fight. But Asu Elmabayev came in as a late replacement and fought Manel Kape in the main event for UFC Fight Night in Las Vegas at the Apex, unfortunately. But it was a decent night of fights. I mean, nothing crazy for the most part, but we did have a lot of decisions. I mean, we're talking like the first 4 fights of the night were all decisions. Then we had a few stoppages, a few more decisions, and then a few more stoppages. So just want to go through those real quick. I mean, there wasn't that many fights altogether. I think it was a total of, oh my God, my mouse is freaking out. There was 10 fights total on the card. It seemed very short, but we'll start with the first fight of the night. Ramazan Tamirov versus Charles Johnson. As you can see, Tamirov just landing punches left and right. Johnson with that crazy fucking hair, man. I hate his hair. It's so annoying. But yeah, he came in and just, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't like a crazy one-sided fight. Johnson did work too, but for the most part, Tamirov gets the best of Charles Johnson in a unanimous decision win in the men's flyweight division. So that puts Tamirov at 19-2, Johnson at 17-7. And as you can see, Tamirov was just catching him with some pretty good punches there. Johnson, I thought, was going to come out with the win here, but he just couldn't put it together. And he was coming off of a 4-fight win streak, but most of those were unanimous decisions except for one. And Tamirov was also on a, holy shit. Actually, he was coming off one win. It was a performance of the night over CJ Vergara. Before that, though, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wins in a row in other organizations. So this marks his 10th win in a row in MMA. So he's on a pretty good streak there, looking to get some bigger opponents coming up next. And our next fight was in the women's division. Pixel quiz: I am training in Dagestan cave while Alex is in Drake concert. I am training in mountain while Alex is drinking free alcohol. All right, is this really Magomed Ankalaev? I'm assuming you're an Ankalaev fan because it sounds like you're not big on Alex. But yeah, we had a unanimous decision win for JJ Aldridge in this one over Andrea Lee. Not a great exciting fight there. Nothing much to talk about. On to the next was a split decision win. Danny Silva gets the win over Lucas Almeida. Pretty close fight here, back and forth. But Silva coming out on top, getting the win in that one. And then for the fourth decision of the night, a little bit of a better fight, but Chepe Mariscal coming out on top over Ricardo Ramos. Mark my words, I'm gonna drown this man. No more Shama. You watched the press conference that just happened before this show came on, because I was watching that too, and that's exactly what I heard Magomed saying. So we'll see. I'm interested to see if Magomed has what it takes to take on Alex Pereira and get the win over him, but I don't know. It's a tough one. Pereira's been on a tear, on a streak. I don't know if Magomed has what it takes, but it should be fun. And we'll get to talking about that here in a few minutes. But yeah, we had Chepe Mariscal getting the win over Ricardo Ramos. And then we get to the first finish of the night, a big KO win for Mario Pinto in his UFC debut over Austin Lane. Alex doing TikTok with Nina Trauma, and I'm chopping wood in my farm. Man, you're hitting all of the hot topics there. I appreciate it too. That's funny shit. Pinto coming in on his Mario Pinto UFC debut, coming in with a 9-0 record, undefeated, stays undefeated after knocking out Austin Lane. Austin Lane needs to just quit. Fighting is not for him. Get ready to wrestle for 25 minutes. I don't know. I think Ankalaev is going to test the striking, and that might be his downfall. I don't think he's going to do nothing but wrestling, but I think he might try to wear out Pereira with some of that wrestling to make you go back to the tire shop. God damn. All right. Pixel Quiz knows what's up with all of the Ankalaev and Pereira lore. Mario Pinto, though, getting the big win over Austin Lane. It doesn't say a whole lot because Austin Lane just doesn't have a great record in the he doesn't have a great record in UFC or in MMA in general. He needs to quit. I don't know that the UFC is going to keep him around after this one. But it's not good for him. Not good for him. He gets embarrassed every time he's out there. He's a big dude. He's got some talent. He's athletic, former NFL player, but I just don't think he has what it takes to be in the upper echelon of fighting in the UFC of all places. Like, he should have probably gotten some more fights in the lower levels. I don't think he's ready for this type of competition. So either go and get some other fights somewhere and hone it in a little bit, or maybe just call it a day on the fighting. So Austin Lane getting knocked out. And that takes us to the main card. Sam Patterson versus Danny Barlow to start off the main card. And this one was a first round knockout for Sam Patterson, which everyone was high on Danny Barlow, thinking that was going to be an easy fight for him. He was 9-0 in MMA, undefeated, suffers his first loss against Sam Patterson, the most like unassuming guy. He's just a tall, lanky white dude, and everyone was thinking Danny Barlow's going to take that one easily. Sam Patterson comes out with a great KO to start off the main card in the fight night on Saturday. And that takes us into Hyder Emil versus William Gomez. This was a hell of a fight, man. These guys just went to war. It was a fun fight to watch all the way around. Gomez is a badass, but Hyder Emil took all kinds of punishment and came back and got a big win by split decision. You know, it may have been a decision, but this fight was fun to watch all the way through. And if you just paid attention and why, I mean, the first round started off somewhat slow. It was a little bit back and forth, but by the time we hit the last minute of the first round, shit went crazy. And I mean, for the most part, I mean, Gomez landed a spinning elbow in the last minute and dropped Emil, and that's what started it off. And Emil looked like he was roughed up, and he comes back with a spinning back fist of his own and a head kick, and both these dudes looked a little rocked at the same time there at the last minute of the round, and then it just continued from there. So it was a great fight. It was fun all the way through, and Hyder Emil stays undefeated. He's now 11-0, came in 10-0, gets the win over William Gomez in a hard-fought split decision for Hyder Emil and William Gomez. That was a great fight. Go back and watch it if you haven't already, or if you didn't get to while it was live. And then we get to another great fight, and this one, I mean, Hyder Emil and Gomez had some damage. Emil looked like he was bloodied up and you know, really showing a lot of damage on his face, but damn. Nasrat Haqparast versus Esteban Ribovics. Ribovics is like a fucking oh shit, I got so into talking about it, I didn't even show the rest of the pictures. There's some pics of Hyder Emil getting some good strikes in there. Gomez is, you know, blocking that kick, but it, you know, it still hurts a little getting through that hand. And then Emil with some punches there. But that brings us to Esteban Ribovics getting some big hits in on with that somewhat of a Superman punch in that top picture. And then you can see some of the damage on Nasrat Haqparast's face in that bottom pick. Ribovics is involved in some great fucking fights. If you remember the last time he fought against Daniel Zellhuber at the Sphere during that Noche UFC fight, it was crazy. And that was like the best fight of the night, pretty much. One of the top fights for fight of the year. But man, he's a durable guy. He can take a lot of punches, and he knows how to land. He's technical sometimes, but a lot of times he's just throwing shit out there, and he's causing damage to his opponent. So this one went to split decision as well, if I remember. Yeah, split decision. It was a fight of the night for these two guys, and Nasrat Haqparast took a lot of damage, man. And you can see it all over his face, but he also handed out some damage, as you can see with those nice flush punches landing on Ribovics here. And it was just an insane fight. You got like 3 fights in a row that were really damn good in this main card, and there's not much you can say except for how fun it was to watch these guys. Haqparast was looking like he was just gonna drop this one, especially with all the damage to his face, because Ribovics just wasn't going anywhere. He's getting beat up as well, and just doesn't look like it's bothering him. But in the end, Haqparast gets the win by split decision. But in the last round, Ribovics winds up, I'm trying to see ahead. Oh, he landed a big knee in the third round. That's what cut open Haqparast and bloodied him up. I mean, he already had the damage under the eye. You can see kind of the discoloration in his face and the swelling in some of these pics. But then you get to the damage, the real damage being shown in that top picture, that nasty cut under his eye after he took a knee to the face. And then it swelled up and closed his eye. I mean, that's that picture on the bottom of before they stitched it up. The stitches were just, you know, it looked like stitches. It wasn't anything crazy, but it almost looked like his eye was under his eye with the way it's like his real eyes closed, his eyelid, and then his eye, like the opening for his eye, but it's not really his eye. It's like under his eye on the top of his cheek, just wide open. Nasty cut there. If you're squeamish, I'm sorry I didn't warn you, but nice and bloody there for you. And that was a nasty cut. Ribovics ended that fight wobbling Haqparast, and he actually mimicked him where he's like, oh, he just kind of did this after he wobbled Haqparast, and Haqparast walked away and barely could stay on his feet. So at the end of the third round, it looked like Ribovics was definitely getting that win, but instead Haqparast pulls out the split decision, and a lot of people think that Ribovics got robbed. It was kind of a robbery. At the end of the fight, you look at Haqparast, you look at Ribovics, and you're like, they both have damage, but Haqparast, especially at the end of that third round, looked like he was about to be done, and instead he gets the win. So it was a high output fight for both of the guys. I mean, Ribovics is just known for putting everything on the line and taking as much damage as he hands out, but in this one, it looked like he should have won that fight, and he didn't. So big ups to Haqparast for that win and hanging in there and being able to tough it out, as well as Ribovics for taking all that damage too. But in the end, in the lightweight division, you get the split decision win for Nasrat Haqparast in a fight of the night. And that brings us to the co-main event for this event. Cody Brundage versus Julian Marquez, and Julian Marquez needed a win. He definitely needed a win. This dude looks so fucking big, and you would think, damn, this dude's gonna come out and kick the shit out of somebody, but he's just been on a streak of bad luck. He was coming off of a 3-fight losing streak, and now Cody Brundage handed him his 4th in a row. So I'm not sure how much longer Marquez will be in the UFC. Usually you're in trouble when you get 3 losses in a row. But I mean, those losses for him were to Gregory Rodriguez, Marc-Andre Barrio, and Zach Reese. So, I mean, pretty tough opponents there. Those were all finishes. He got finished in all 3 of those fights, and now he got finished in this one as well. So that makes 4 losses for Julian Marquez, all by finish. Not looking good for him sticking around in the UFC. Cuban Missile Crisis is his nickname, which is a pretty dope nickname actually, but he just cannot seem to get a win and put together any amount of wins. Instead, he's on a big losing streak, and I'm not sure we're going to see him in the UFC much longer, if at all anymore, after this fight. But Cody Brundage definitely got the best of him, and this one ended at the end of the first round. It was 4 minutes and 45 seconds into the first round when Brundage gets the stop by TKO and just puts Julian Marquez away. I mean, this was a fun fight to watch as well. Like I said, these middle 3 fights were the best on the card and had a lot of action, a lot of damage. Cody Brundage came out there and showed what he was about. And that was just a fun fight to watch. I mean, for the most part, it was him doing all the damage. I mean, he started with some big right hands and knees. He came out fast. He came out landing, being, you know, pretty accurate with all of his strikes. Good combos. He was working the angles really well too, mixing up the strikes, you know, knees, kicks, punches, elbows. He's doing it all. Marquez just looked kind of slow coming out right at first. But then his striking started up, and he wound up having some success in there and landing on Brundage a little bit. But Brundage he got the best of him for the most part. He gets Marquez down and attempts a sub at one point in time, but Marquez gets up, and then Brundage just keeps damaging him with all the strikes. At one point in time, they fucking, I think it was Marquez knocked Brundage's mouthpiece out, which was crazy. And then, or it might have been the other way around. Brundage knocks out Marquez's mouthpiece, and then Marquez comes back and knocks out Brundage's mouthpiece. Both their mouthpieces go flying. They're fucking going toe to toe, slugging it out. It was a crazy exchange, and then they stop for just a second. The ref stops them, gives them both their mouthpieces. They both put them in their mouth, and then they just fucking go back at it again. It was crazy. Dominic Cruz makes a funny, statement. He's like, "What happens? Like, that's weird. I've never seen that." He just picked them up and gave them back to him. He's like, "What if he would have gotten them confused? What if they just put each other's mouthpieces in their own mouth?" And then as he's saying this, Brundage fucking knocks out Marquez. I was like, holy shit. Or doesn't knock him out, but knocks him down, jumps on his back and finishes him with ground and pound. Gets a TKO win. But it was a crazy sequence that happened at the end of that fight. And if you're listening to the commentary, you hear Dominic Cruz saying this, and next thing you know, the fight's over. Brundage finishes him in the first round, and that ends the co-main event for that one. And Julian Marquez is probably on his way out from the UFC, because I don't see them, letting him stick around with 4 losses in a row, all by TKO finish. It's not a good look. And that leads us to the main event. Asu Almabayev versus Manel Kape. So if you remember, Manel Kape had that shitty performance against Magomed. I'm sorry, not Magomed. What the fuck was his name? I'm thinking of all the Evs. Mohamed Makayev. I knew it was one of the Evs. Had that stupid fight with Mohamed Makayev back in July of last year, where they were trying to fight each other during them getting announced by Bruce Buffer, and the security had to come in and hold them back and all this other shit. And then they get into the actual fight and don't do anything, just fucking dance around and act stupid. And there's no aggression, no sense of urgency, boring ass fight. And then Makayev gets cut from the UFC. So, and he's one of the top, could have been a top contender. Didn't have far to go. He was undefeated, and he gets the win over Manel Kape and stays undefeated, and then gets cut from the UFC because apparently he was difficult to deal with and all this other shit. Well, anyway, Manel Kape comes back, fights Bruno Silva, gets a 3rd round finish over Bruno Silva by TKO back in December, and that leads to this fight, which was supposed to be versus Brandon Royval, and that was canceled. So Asu Almabayev comes in, only ranked two under Manel Kape, and winds up fighting Manel and losing to him, unfortunately for him, in the 3rd round as well. Manel Kape seems to get finishes in the 3rd round of all of his fights, which is kind of funny. Whenever he does get finishes, I should say. The last 2 before these were 1st round finishes, but yeah, lately it's been 3rd round finishes for him. And the shitty part about this is you can see Asu landed some stuff here and there, nothing crazy. I think he landed like one more significant strike in the 1st round. Not sure if he actually won the 1st round completely, but he was mixing up the strikes pretty well in the 1st round. But there was a bit of a warning in the 1st round for Manel Kape about his fingers being extended, and that's always cause for concern, because then you think, okay, another eye poke situation like what happened in the main event of last week or the week before with Henry Cejudo at the UFC Seattle event, with what was it, Song Yadong? Yeah. And Song Yadong, poked him in the eye. That's what ended that fight. So Manel Kape gets a warning in the 1st round, comes out in the 2nd round, just landing right hands pretty much, doing pretty well actually with his striking against Asu. And then in the last 30 seconds, he winds up doing this kind of like an eye rake, where he's like sticks his hand out and almost like a slap, but he winds up rubbing his hand with his fingers open across Asu's face, and kind of pokes him in the eye, and he's like kind of doing this almost like trying to call timeout or whatever, and it just keeps going. That was the last 30 seconds of the 2nd round. and it was kind of a double eye poke. He kind of poked him across his face in both his eyes. So then we get to the third round, and it's a lot of the same going on. But then Manel Kape kind of does the same thing again, does a little raking motion across his eyes as he's like putting his hands out there, and nothing happens. The ref doesn't see it apparently, and with that he winds up getting a TKO over Asu Almabayev. He gets him with the knee and leads to a bunch of punches on the ground and gets a TKO. Asu kind of was running away from him a little bit as he was trying to get away, because he was getting hit. He couldn't see because of the eye poke thing. You can see a couple of the big punches here by Manel Kape, and then this was Asu on the bottom running away, and Manel Kape comes running behind him, basically wraps his arm around him, hits him in the mouth, and that's what kind of drops him, gets him to the ground, and then he finishes him down there. And Asu's just like pawing at his eye the whole time. So again, for the second week in a row, we get eye pokes that do a lot during a fight, and the guy doing the poking winds up still winning. It's crazy. So I don't know what's going to happen with the eye poke thing. That's why they decided to try to change the gloves in the first place, which was unsuccessful, because then they had no knockouts, no TKOs. There's a bunch of decisions left and right because they blamed the new gloves. So they went back to the new gloves, and now we've just had a couple weeks in a row with eye pokes being involved in the main events of both fights. So I'm not sure what they're going to do about that, but they need to do something that's better than what they did last time with some stupid shitty gloves that really don't look any different and look kind of shitty actually. So there's plenty of things out there. There's plenty of other gloves that look at Pride had gloves that curved a little bit. Bellator had gloves that curved a little bit. I'm not sure why the UFC doesn't adopt something like this. It's just an ongoing problem. I don't know if they'll ever fix it, but let's hope that the eye pokes chill out, because it just changes the way a fight goes, especially when it happens multiple times. The refs need to start taking points. Need to start taking points right away from these guys with the eye pokes, because they get warned in the back. So that's your warning. Why are we continuing to warn them in the cage when they've been warned in the back? As soon as it happens, maybe that gets them to stop, leading with their fingers out. Like that's just a cause for an eye poke. There's no way around it. So again, with the stupid eye pokes in the second main event in 2 weeks that end with because of eye pokes, it's stupid. Let's just hope that none of that happens in UFC 213 coming up this weekend. Let's move on to that. So we got Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. Pixel quiz in the chat was all about all of the things Magomed Ankalaev was talking about, and all the things that Pereira's been doing. So there was talks about him being out partying, which I don't know how much he really parties, but I guess maybe somebody saw him drinking or something. And yeah, I don't think Pereira is one of those guys that's going to go out and just fuck around. He trains hard. You see training footage of him all over the place all the time. I don't think he's out there getting fucked up and just acting like Conor McGregor. I don't even think he can do that. Maybe he can, I don't know. But that just doesn't seem the type of dude to do that these days. Maybe back in the day. But Ankalaev says no more Chama. Everyone's gonna forget about that soon, because he's gonna be the guy to finish him. And that was the talk leading up to this fight. This was the fight everyone was scared of for Pereira, saying that Magomed Ankalaev is that Dagestani wrestler, grappler that was gonna come out and expose the wrestling and grappling of Pereira. Even though he's done it in multiple fights in the past, people still seem to think that Ankalaev is going to be the guy, even though he doesn't primarily wrestle and grapple. He can, obviously, but he comes out striking most of the time. So will he utilize the wrestling? Will he utilize the grappling? Will that be his main offense, or is he going to try to stand and bang with Pereira, which would probably be a bad idea for him because Pereira is a fucking killer and a monster. And, you know, the only person he's lost to in the UFC is Israel Adesanya. And, you know, that was a little more personal. So I'm not sure what happened there, but that was like marking the end of his middleweight reign. And then he moves up to light heavyweight, and he's just been killing fools up here and dominating. So, you know, he had some close fights. He gets hit a lot. So that's, I mean, not a lot, but he gets hit enough to be concerning if he makes, you know, being exposed for a possible, you know, to get caught. So that's something you got to look out for with him. But speaking of getting caught, you also have Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev in the rematch. They fought in the past. Justin Gaethje got the win there. And, you know, Gaethje comes out for war. And Fiziev got bloodied up and had a lot of damage in their last fight. So I guess I need a drink because my throat is bugging me. So this should be an exciting co-main. Originally, it was supposed to be Dan Hooker versus Justin Gaethje, which was like the fight of all fights everybody was waiting for. And unfortunately, Hooker got a nasty hand injury for punching one of his trading partners in the head, like on the top of the head. So that's not good. Apparently, he just got out of surgery. It was a pretty nasty injury, from what I heard. So unfortunately, we're not getting that fight with Gaethje versus Hooker. Maybe in the future, but we'll see what happens with Gaethje here because he's coming off that nasty KO loss to Max Holloway, where he got flatlined at the end of the fifth round for the BMF title. So this should be a fun fight. I mean, I'm looking forward to this whole card. It seems like a great card overall. Let's start with the prelims here. We got Ozzy Diaz versus Desjardins Santos. Santos is 10-1. Diaz is 9-3 to start off the prelims in the middleweight division. It looks like Diaz is, if my computer will work for me here. Diaz is coming off a loss, his only loss on his record, to Ming Yang Zhang. That was in November of last year. That was a TKO stoppage. And then you got Diaz. Oh, I'm sorry, that was Diaz. That's what I said. Shit. Santos is coming off of a win on the Contender Series. So this is his UFC debut. Ozzy Diaz, 10-1. Oh, I have those backwards. That would be why it didn't make sense. Cool. Okay. Moving on. We got Chris Gutierrez versus John Castaneda. This should be a fun one here. Both these guys with similar records in the bantamweight division for the second fight of the night on the prelims. And then you got Myron Santos versus Francis Marshall in the men's featherweight division. 14-1 for Santos. 15-1 for Santos, 8-2 for Marshall. This one should be a good one too. Let's see, Santos. Yeah, Santos has only fought once in the UFC, and that was a finish for him. Man, stop lagging. My computer's being laggy. I don't know why. It's probably just this website because Tapology just seems to be annoying when you're on it for a little while. I'm not sure what the deal is there, but Francis Marshall, 2-2 in the UFC. He's coming off a win though over Dennis Bazooka. That was a split decision win for him. And then we got Alex Morono versus Carlos Leal. Alex Morono is one of those guys that just doesn't look like a fighter, but he is. He's got this weird, like, looks like he just speaks in monotones. But he's got a lot of fights. 24-11 versus Leal, who's 21-7. That's happening in the welterweight division. Next, you got Bruno Ferreira versus Armin Petrosyan. Petrosyan needs a win here. He is on a 2-fight losing streak and both being finished in both those fights, but that was against Rodolfo Vieira and Shara Bullet, where he got finished with those double spinning back fists. in October of last year. So he needs a win here with two losses in a row. You never want to get that third loss. So Petrosian looking for a win over Bruno Ferreira, who's a tough opponent though. He's 12-2. And I believe he's coming off a loss though to Abus Magomedov. That was a submission loss for him. So both these guys coming off of losses, looking to get back in the win column. And next up, you have Joshua Van versus Rai Suruya. Yeah, I think so. So Rai is 10-0. Joshua Van's 12-2. That should be a good fight there in the men's flyweight division. Suruya is 1-0 in the UFC, undefeated overall. And then you got Joshua Van, who's 12-2. I don't want these pop-ups ads. He's on a 2-fight win streak in the UFC, with his only loss being to Charles Johnson back in July of last year. He fought 3 times last year. He fought 4 times last year. That's a lot of fights. So he was 3-1. He's 5-1 overall in the UFC. So Joshua Van is always a fun one to watch. We'll see what he does against Rai Suruya. That's a tough name. And then you got Curtis Blades in the prelims against Rizvan Kuniev. Blades is 18-5. Kuniev 12-2. Curtis Blades, you know, he's one of those guys that's just been up there, almost in contention, just fighting some of the bigger names. And yeah, he just can't seem to make it all the way up to the top and get that title shot. But his last fight was against Tom Aspinall. I mean, he did fight for the interim belt against Tom Aspinall, which is strange that Tom had to defend the interim title. But that, you know, that heavyweight division's crazy with John Jones up there. They're still trying to make that fight between Tom Aspinall and John Jones. It sounds promising. According to Dana, it's going to be in the summertime, so we're probably thinking maybe International Fight Week or something. That would be a pretty big fight for that weekend. That'd be nice. Curtis Blades is like on a win-lose type streak. He had a 3-fight win streak back in 21 and 22, where he fought Rosenstruck, Chris Dawkins, and Tom Aspinall. He has a win over Tom Aspinall, but that's because Aspinall got that knee injury. So it was kind of a injury win TKO for Curtis Blades on that one. But then he came back and lost to Sergey Pavlovich, got a win against Jelton Almeida, and then lost to Tom Aspinall. So we know that injury was definitely the reason why Blades was able to beat him, unfortunately for him. So that rounds off the prelims. Should be a good fight there to lead us into the main card. And we start that main card off with King Green, formerly known as Bobby Green. He legitimately changed his name to King Green. Used to be just King Bobby Green, and now it's King Green. So I guess we'll stick with that one. But he's 32-16 overall, 13-11 in the UFC. So that's a crazy fucking record. That's a lot of fights, but that's a lot of losses in the UFC. But I mean, he's got talent, but he just seems to be in that position of his career where he seems to always have a reason why he lost. Like he said in his last loss to Paddy Pimblett, that he's like, it's like I slipped on a banana peel and then I lost the Super Bowl. It's like, what? Not sure what he means by that. Paddy just looked good in that fight. That was a first round finish for Paddy Pimblett. He submitted him by triangle choke. So Bobby Lee got the loss there. But as you can see, he's got a winning record in submissions, 9-3, 11-6 overall in KO TKOs, 12-8 by decision. So, you know, he has a lot of losses in all of the columns there because he has a lot of losses overall, but still he has a lot of fights under his belt. He's a vet, and he can always come out and do some damage. But against Mauricio Rufy, part of that Fighting Nerds team, I don't know, man. This doesn't seem like a good matchup for Bobby Lee. Bobby Lee. That's a comedian. Bobby Green. I shouldn't even say Bobby Green because it's King Green now. That's how he's listed everywhere, so you have to say it. But King Bobby Green. How about that? King Green I just don't see this being a good matchup for him. Mauricio Rufy is one of those younger guys. He's 29 years old, almost 10 years younger than Green. And I mean, he's part of that Fighting Nerds team, like I said. He's 11-1 overall, undefeated in the UFC, 2-0. And he's coming off of wins over James Yontop and Jamie Malarkey. But Yontop was a decision win. Jamie Malarkey was a TKO win for him there. That was a performance of the night bonus. But he's 2-0. You know, he goes from a finish to a decision. Not the biggest names, but you know, with King Green having the record that he has, I mean, I just don't think this is the time for him to be fighting younger guys that are, you know, not vets in the game, basically. I mean, Green needs to be fighting like he fought Jim Miller. That was a good fight for him. Stuff like that. I don't think he needs to be fighting these younger up and coming guys that are just hungry and ready. So Mauricio Rufy's a badass, and I feel like King Green's gonna have a tough time with this one. So don't forget, I have the fight wheel that I started last week that predicted did predictions on the fights. It didn't do so well last week. I think the wheel went like, I think it was a losing record. I forgot to write it down. Actually, I did write it down. I just don't know where I put it. So that's dumb, but I'm definitely going to keep track of this one for this week. I wasn't impressed by the picks, I guess I should say. Maybe I should go back and look real fast, because I think I remember what the picks were. So right off the bat, Danny Barlow was the pick for the first fight of the night last week, and that one was a loss. Hyder Emil won the second fight, and the wheel picked that one correctly. I believe the wheel picked Hakbaras, so that one was correct. So that's 2-1. But then it picked Julian Marquez and Asu Amabayev. So the wheel went 2-3. So it was not a winning record for the wheel last week. I was thinking this week, if it did good last week, I was thinking this week I would put money on the wheel picks. I still might throw $5 at a parlay with the wheel picks. We'll see what happens, but stick around for that wheel. I'm doing the fight wheel again this week. Well, check it out if you haven't seen it. I put something up on TikTok introducing the wheel as well, so go check that out. Let's move on to the next fight. It's the women in the second fight of the night on the main card. In the strawweight division, we got Amanda Lemos versus Yasmin Lucindo. I mean, these girls, they're not the most exciting fighters. The last time I was excited about a fight with Amanda Lemos, it was because she was getting beat. I hate to say that. It's tough, but it's true. So, I mean, this is probably the least anticipated fight, but you never know what you're going to get from these women. And Lucindo's been in some decent fights, I believe. But this is in the women's strawweight division. Amanda Lemos, getting up there in age. She's 37, fighting a 23-year-old. That's tough, but Lemos is, you know, she's pretty good. I mean, 8-4 in the UFC, 8-1 by TKO, 3-2 by sub. Right on Infinity, appreciate you joining in. Amanda Lemos is coming off a loss though to Virna Jandiroba, where she got armbarred in the second round. Before that, she had a win over Mackenzie Dern, and then before that was a loss to Weili Zhang for the title. So I mean, she's fought for a title, but you know, she just can't seem to put together enough wins to be reliable, I guess. So she's fighting Yasmin Lucindo, who is 17-5 overall. She's 23 years old, 4-1 in the UFC, 8-0 by KO TKO. So that's a pretty good stat there. 3-3 by sub, and then 6-2 by decision. So we got somewhat similar in all those categories there, but Lucindo's on a 4-fight win streak with wins over Marina Rodriguez, Karolina Kovacevic, Polyana Viana, and Brogan Walker. Most of those names are pretty notable. So Lucindo's been fighting some good competition. I mean, so is Lemos, but Lucindo's on a 4-fight win streak. So that's not looking good for Lemos, especially being the older fighter who, you know, is kind of a streaky fighter. But Lucindo's had, let's see, 1, 2, 3 out of those 4 fights that she's won in a row have been by decision. 2 of them unanimous, 1 split, and then she's had the 1 win over Polyana Viana by arm triangle choke back in August of 23. So, you know, you kind of, like I said, it's probably going to go all, you know, it's probably going to go the distance, and we'll see which one comes out on top. I'm assuming Lucindo is going to win this one, just judging by the records and what's been happening recently for these girls. Maybe Lemos should come out real hungry, ready to get a win and put it all together. So we'll see what happens with that fight. Let's move on to the next one, which is a more exciting fight, I think. Jalen Turner versus Ignacio Bahamondes. Bahamondes is a beast, but Jalen Turner is just so tall and lanky. It's tough to get inside of that distance that those long limbs create. And also he wraps motherfuckers up too. So I think he's like 6'3" or 6'4", some shit like that. I don't know. He's tall as hell for, maybe he's only 6'2", but for that weight class, let's see. Oh yeah, he's 6'3". 6'3" with a 75.5 inch reach. It's insane. But I mean, you know, he's 14-8 overall, 7-5 in the UFC, so he's obviously beatable. It's an awkward fight and difficult to get in on him. He is coming off a loss to Renato Moicano, which is a tough opponent. I mean, Money Moicano is a beast as well. His last win was over King Green, which was his only win in the last 4 fights, because before that he had a loss to Dan Hooker and a loss to Mateusz Gamrot. So he's had some big opponents that he's gone. Split decision though for Hooker, split decision with Gamrot. The loss to Moicano was a TKO, and his win over King Green was a TKO. Before those losses though, he was on a 5-fight win streak with wins over Josh Kulabau, Brock Weaver, Uros Medic, Jamie Malarkey, and Brad Riddell. So some pretty decent names in there. All of those were finishes for him. So he was on a pretty damn good streak until he started getting a few losses. But it's going to be a tough one coming up against Ignacio Bahamondes, who's on a 2-fight win streak, 16-5 overall, 5-2 in the UFC, 11-0 by KO TKO. That's a hell of a stat right there. Never been finished by KO TKO. 11 wins in there. 1-2 by sub, which Jalen Turner's 4-0 in submissions, so that's a better stat for him. And I guess if you're getting to the ground, he's gonna wrap you up, like I said, with those long limbs. But Ignacio has the better record in decisions with 4-3. As for Jalen Turner, loses all of his decisions so far. He's 0-4. And then we got Bahamondes on a 2-fight win streak with wins over Manuel Torres and Christos Giagos. Those were both TKO finishes for him. Before that, he had a loss to Ludovic Klein by unanimous decision. And then a couple wins before that, Trey Ogden, Rong Zhu, and Roosevelt Roberts. A few finishes in those two. So, I mean, I feel like this is going to be a fun fight because Bahamondes is kind of on a win streak here and has been looking good in his last few fights. But then you got Jalen Turner. Look at that leg extension with that head kick against Dan Hooker. Holy fuck. That shit is crazy. That's what I'm talking about with those long limbs. You know, it's hard to get inside that distance that he creates with those long limbs. And on top of that, you get to the ground and he's undefeated by submission. And he can wrap you up and you know, choke you out or submit you somehow on the ground. And with Bahamondes not having as good of a record on the ground there, it's actually a losing record on the ground for Bahamondes. So that's something to keep an eye on when you're betting for this fight and if you're just making picks. So this should be a fun one. I'm looking forward to this one. And then we get to a really fun fight. Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. So this should be a fun one. Like I said, I mean, Justin Gaethje, it's tough to be bored in any fight of his. You know, he's been trying to fight a little smarter and trying to be a little more tactical and technical. But when it comes down to it, you know, he still has that dog in him, and he's still, you know, 10 toes down and gets to it like he did against Max Holloway. And even though he got knocked out in that one, it's still one of those all heart moments where he's gonna fucking throw down in the center of the cage, and whoever's left standing is left standing. Unfortunately for him, he was the one that went to sleep face down on the mat. It was a tough one to watch, and I felt sad seeing him go down like that, but I was happy for Max Holloway. Max Holloway just did that. Oh, just that fucking celebration was sick. There's so many good pictures came out from that, and unfortunately it was at Justin Gaethje's expense, but man, it was so fun watching that happen. It was an insane moment that, I mean, it'll just live on forever. It's just one of the best endings to a fight. Even though Gaethje was not doing well in that fight, I mean, he basically lost that whole fight. Max Holloway could have cruised to an easy win by decision, but instead he pointed to the ground, he took it to the center, and they fucking threw down for the last 10 seconds, and with like 2 or 3 seconds left, he knocks Justin Gaethje the fuck out face down on the mat. Insane shit, but you got to give it to Justin Gaethje for going through that and, you know, just being all heart. It's insane. But these two have fought before. Rafael Fiziev unfortunately lost in that fight they had before, but it was a close fight. We got Justin Gaethje, 25-5 overall, 8-5 in the UFC. He is coming off that loss to Max Holloway for the BMF title. Like I said, that's where he lost his belt. Before that is when he won the BMF title over Dustin Poirier with that head kick knockout in the second round, that was a tough one to watch too, because I love Poirier as well, and watching Poirier get knocked out like that fucking sucked. But it was fun watching Gaethje do it. So it's one of those, you know, bittersweet kind of endings. But before that fight, before he won the BMF title, is when he fought Fiziev last time. It was a majority decision win for him. It was a fight of the night, of course. And yeah, that was on March of 23, so 2 years ago. So we'll see what happens with this one. Of course, Fiziev is stepping in for Dan Hooker, which was supposed to be the original fight, and then Dan Hooker got injured his hand pretty badly in training. So now Fiziev steps in and he's fighting Justin Gaethje. I feel like it's going to be a great fight in the lightweight division. Fiziev is 12-3 overall, 6-3 in the UFC. One of those losses already having been to Justin Gaethje. He is 8-2 by KO TKO, 1-0 by sub, and 3-1 by decision. If you look at those categories stacked up, I mean, it's pretty similar in the KO TKO side. 500 record for Gaethje in subs. I mean, Fiziev only has one win there, but he's never been subbed. And then Gaethje's never lost a decision, but he's only got 4 wins there. And Fiziev's lost 1 by decision with 3 wins. Gaethje's coming off 1 loss. Fiziev is coming off a 2-fight losing streak, which was a loss to Mateusz Gamrot in his last fight, which was a leg injury. So it's been over a year since he fought. He fought last in September of 2023. So he's coming off that injury with his first fight coming back against Justin Gaethje, where in 23 as well is when he lost that fight to him by majority decision. Before that, though, he was on a 6-fight win streak with wins over names like Mark Diakese, Renato Moicano, King Green, and Brad Riddell, and Rafael Dos Anjos. So he had a pretty damn impressive winning streak going on there with some big names for opponents. But yeah, now he's fighting Justin Gaethje again, which he's lost to before. Again, it was a close fight, majority decision win for Gaethje. But Gaethje's just a fucking dog, and he's an animal in there. He's got great kicks, he's got great punches. You know, he pulls out decision wins. He's never lost by decision. Not the best record in submissions, but also not that many fights there. So, I mean, it's always fun to watch Justin Gaethje fight. And here's his a big uppercut against Fiziev, where he busted Fiziev open and bloodied him up. So that was a crazy fight the last time they fought. And then Fiziev, of course, with the big strikes against Rafael dos Anjos with that flying knee, a big punch against King Green there. Both of those were wins for him. And then you got some strikes landing on Justin Gaethje the last time they fought. This was early in the fight because Fiziev's not even bloodied up yet. But, you know, he did get in on Gaethje. He got some good strikes in and made it a good fight. So that should be a great co-main event to lead us into the main event of Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. Poatan going for, I believe, his 4th title defense in the light heavyweight division. Let me check that out real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, his 5th title defense. Shit. No, his 4th title defense, his 5th title fight. So, you know, he won the fight against Yuri. He won the belt against Yuri. That was a finish. He got the finish against Jamal Hill. And then he got a finish against Yuri again. And then his 3rd title defense was against Khalil Roundtree in that hard-fought win with the 4th round finish over Khalil Roundtree. So he's on a 5-fight win streak because before that, before winning the belt, he beat Jan Blachowicz, which gave him probably the most trouble on the ground, which everyone's thinking that's where it's going to head for Ankalaev here. Because, you know, he is a Dagestani guy with the wrestling and grappling, but I'm not sure if he's going to take it there. He's talked about standing and striking with Pereira, but we'll have to wait and see. But I'm definitely anticipating a great fight here. And I'm looking forward to it. Pereira's 12-2 overall, 9-1 in the UFC, with that only loss being to Israel Adesanya. 10-1 by KO TKO, 0-1 by sub, and 2-0 by decision. He's on a 5-fight win streak. And then you got Ankalaev, who is 20-1 overall, which is a hell of a record. I mean, shit. I didn't even realize that he's only lost once in his entire career, which is different. I mean, then Pereira's only lost twice, so it's not like crazy. But Ankalaev is 11-1 in the UFC. They both have their one loss has happened in the UFC. Oh, I'm sorry. Pereira's had 2 losses, but they both only have 1 loss in the UFC. 11-0 by KO TKO. So he has 1 more win and 1 less loss than Pereira in that KO TKO category, which is crazy because you don't really think of Ankalaev as a striker, but there you go. And then you think of Pereira as a striker because you've seen him knock people out left and right, and yet, you know, that's what it stacks up as in that category. 0-1 for both of them in submissions, and they're both undefeated by decision. So if this goes to if this gets on the ground and it goes to decision, then one of them's going to get their first loss ever by decision. I don't see this one going to distance, so I think that Pereira's going to find a way to knock out Ankalaev one way or the other. And if not, then I see Ankalaev possibly catching Pereira one way or the other, and then, you know, knocking him out. I don't see this one going to decision. I don't see neither one of them have any wins by submission. So I mean, if it gets to the ground, it's going to be a weird one, and I think it gets back to its feet eventually. So even if we get to the later rounds, I think it's going to end in a finish, probably by strikes. So, but it's interesting, and we'll see if Ankalaev does what he says he's going to do, which is end the hot streak of Alex Pereira and have it be Chama no more. But we'll see. So, I mean, here's some examples of some KOs by Alex Pereira. Poatan, which, I mean, by the way, this will be his 4th title defense in since the end of 2023. So November 2023 was his when he won the title, and then he defended in April of 24, in June of 24, and then in October of 24. He had 3 title defenses in 2024, and now in early 2025 he's getting his 4th title defense. Pereira's just a fucking beast, and he's definitely one of the most consistent and reliable fighters in the UFC, especially as a champion. So you got those 2 knockouts there, and then you got this nasty nasty win against Khalil Roundtree, where Roundtree actually caught him a couple times. So that's one thing you got to watch out for. With Ankalaev being a striker as well, you saw the categories and the records in the KO TKO columns and stuff like that. I mean, Ankalaev is a striker as well, and Khalil Roundtree had some success with some strikes against Pereira. He caught him a couple times, and it's not the first time Pereira has been hit. Obviously, he got knocked out by Israel Adesanya as well, even though that was kind of a emotionally filled fight, but it's still something you gotta look out for, because Pereira gets hit, and Ankalaev has shown that he can knock people out. So he may do it in a low-key way, but he does it, and that's the important thing. So that could get interesting. As you can see here, Ankalaev with the big strikes. He's got the kicks, he's got the punches. And then we continue here with more of those punches and that crazy elbow at the bottom. So again, you got to watch out for it. If Ankalaev stands and bangs with Pereira, Pereira's got to be technical. He's got to be alert, and he's got to not take advantage of the fact that he's been on a streak of knocking people out and finishing people on the feet. And then he says he's been working on his takedown defense and is in his wrestling. So I guess we'll see if it gets tested and how true it is. But this should be a great fight for the main event for the light heavyweight title on Saturday night. Don't forget about the watch party happening Saturday night during the main card. As soon as the main card goes live, we will be live here on this channel. Hit that notification bell, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Let's get to this fight wheel to end this shit off. Let's see what the fight wheel has for us in store this week, because, you know, last week it didn't do so well. More losses than wins, but it was still fun to do it. Let me get to the controls here, and let's see what the wheel has to say for our first spin of the night. Let's see. Winning, Ignacio Bahamondes is gonna beat Jalen Turner according to the wheel. That's our first one for the night. I'm just writing these down so I can keep track, unlike last week where I didn't. So I'm going to remove Bahamondes, and I'm going to remove Jalen Turner because that's his opponent. We'll get those off the wheel, and let's go for our next spin. See who the next fighter is predicted to be the winner on the wheel. King Green predicted to beat Mauricio Rufy. Now Bahamondes sounds like a good prediction. King Green to beat Mauricio Rufy, I'm not sure about that one, but we'll see how that one turns out. Maybe he comes in as the underdog and beats Rufy. So let's get rid of Rufy there for, where is that name? Oh, there it is. Let's get rid of that name, and let's go to the wheel again for the next spin for a prediction on the next fight. Only 3 fights left. Yasmin Lucindo predicted to win over Amanda Lemos, which doesn't sound far-fetched. Lucindo's on a win streak, on a 4-fight win streak. Amanda Lemos is coming off a loss. Let's get rid of those names. We're down to 2 fights. Let's see what's next for the wheels predictions for Saturday night. UFC 313. Holy shit, Justin Gaethje to pull off his second win over Rafael Fiziev. I said that name all wrong. Rafael Fiziev. JG to get that win. That one makes sense. So far, only one fight doesn't make sense out of all of these predictions. Let's see what happens with the main event. Last fight left. Let's see what the wheel says. Oh shit, it's predicting Ankalaev as the winner. Oh my god. I don't know. It's, you know what? It's not a bad, you know what? This is an underdog parlay pretty much. So holy shit. Oh man. So we got oh no. I'm gonna have to, I think I have to bet on this because it's not a bad parlay if you think about it. So let's go here and let's see. Bahamondes is predicted to beat Jalen Turner That was the first wheel prediction. And then we got King Green to beat Mauricio Rufy. That's my first doubtful one, but that's what the wheel predicted. And then we got Yasmin Lucindo to beat Amanda Lemos. That one is pretty believable. Next one up is Justin Gaethje to beat Rafael Fiziev again. That one makes sense. And then we got the biggest prediction of the night, Magomed Ankalaev to beat Alex Pereira and you, according to the fight wheel. Listen, these are not my picks. These are the fight wheel picks, okay? So don't blame me if they're wrong, but I might have to put some money on that just in case the wheel has a little more insight than the rest of us. The fight wheel is fun. I like doing it. It's a good way to end off the night. That's it for me. Let's get this done. Let's wrap it up. Thanks for joining in, everybody in the chat. Pixel Quiz, quoting all of the big Ankalaev quotes. The wheel agrees with you, Pixel Quiz. So if you come back and watch this, just know the wheel agreed with you, saying that Ankalaev was going to win. Thank you to DJ Infinity, DJ Magix for joining in. My wife, my daughter Tren. Go follow her everywhere. Tenet Tren. My mom too, giving me the heads up on the volume for the mic. I appreciate that. Much love. Thanks again to everybody in the chat. Thanks for everybody for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget about that Watch Party podcast happening live during the main card of UFC 313 this Saturday, March 8th, 8 p.m. Arizona time. When the main card goes live, we go live. Check it out. That's it for me. I'm out of here. Take it easy. Peace.